Last year we were in Las Vegas, which is where I live, and very happy to be coming here to you today here in Detroit. And welcome to our session called You're All I Need to Get By, the Artificial Intelligence Revolution. So stick with me here through what I'm about to say, okay? Hang on, and I'll speak slower than I normally speak, I promise. AI, specifically generative AI, is one of the hottest topics in the world today. For good or for ill, it is transforming the way we live, socialize, and do business. It is upending healthcare, shopping, and even the creative process, like that was just talked about on stage. So what is it? Generative AI, which is short for generative artificial intelligence, is a subset of AI that focuses on creating, generating, or producing new data, content, and information. Unlike traditional AI systems that are designed for tasks such as classifications, predictions, and optimizations, generative AI is specifically developed to generate novel outputs, meaning new inputs that mimic or simulate human creativity and intelligence. At the core of generative AI, stick with me, okay? At the core of generative AI are models trained on large data sets to learn patterns, structures, and representations within the data. Once trained, generative AI systems can autonomously produce new content, including text, images, audio, video, 3D models, and recommendations. Generative AI systems have also raised ethical concerns, particularly in the context of deepfakes and misinformation, highlighting the need for responsible use and regulation of generative AI technology. Was that definition helpful at all? Okay. Well, you can thank ChatGPT. That's who wrote that. Okay. You ask ChatGPT to define itself, that's what you get. So, and if you haven't used ChatGPT yet, I highly suggest you give it a try. It's interesting. You need to familiarize yourself with how that works and other various AI platforms. Generative AI is helpful to leaders as they make decisions because it quickly analyzes vast amounts of data and information to identify patterns that humans might overlook. And so another way to think of the difference between AI and generative AI is AI analyzes data, creates and understands what patterns are there, and it learns. Generative AI can create something based off of what it learns, meaning it can produce and create something that didn't exist before, which is a little scary. So this also introduces a lot of risks and a lot of need for regulation, as noted by ChatGPT itself. ChatGPT is saying someone needs to police what I'm doing, okay? So one major concern is the potential for bias in AI systems, as it learns from historical data programmed into it that might reflect societal prejudices. Great example is if you have an AI engine replacing loan officers at a bank, and they have two applications for a loan, and pretty much they're identical in credit score and salary and all these things, but this name on the application says John Smith. This application says Lamar Brown. Is there a bias in the programming that's going to pick the John Smith application over this one? I don't know. These are things we have to worry about. As AI systems gather and analyze potential data, there is definitely a potential for misuse and breaches, leading to unauthorized access and potentially a loss of sensitive personal information. So, as a reminder, while we're doing our thing up here, please submit your questions on the conference app. We will respond to your questions at the end of the session. So if you would please open your app and scroll down to Open Q&A. Just select the title of this session, which is You're All I Need to Get By, the Artificial Intelligence Revolution, and then type in your question. So we took a poll. IWF members weighed in on this topic via our Global Members Leadership Poll, IWF Pulse. We asked you to respond to this statement: AI will do my job within the next decade. 16% of you said, yes, it will. 64% of you said, no, my job is secure. One thing I'd love to point out to you is that it's estimated that 83 million jobs will be eliminated by AI and AI-powered robots in the next 2.5 years. But 97 million new jobs will be created. So Let's think about that, right? And it's not just about how do we train the kids, right? How do we encourage our young people to go into data science and machine learning and all these wonderful things? How do we make sure we take care of these displaced adults, right? How do we make sure that, at some point, if your company is laying off people because you're replacing their jobs, when does that become your responsibility to provide them with new training so that we don't have 85 million unemployed people in the workforce, right? So we're going to have a discussion now on all of these wonderful topics, and joining us today to discuss this revolutionary technology are 3 experts with different perspectives. Our first guest was the Chief Privacy Officer at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and was also President and CEO of the Center for Democracy and Technology. Please welcome the Senior Vice President and Chief Counsel for Digital Citizenship at Walmart, Nuala O'Connor. Welcome. Thanks. So glad you're here. Oh, I love that sound. Beep, beep, boop, boop. Also with us is a woman with both neuroscience and law degrees. Think about that for just a moment. She has degrees in neuroscience and law. That is cool. She has worked at a multinational technology company and serves on the leadership team of the Health AI Partnership. At DLA Piper, her practice area is AI and regulation. Please welcome Keo Shaw. Welcome. Our final panelist is a former vice president at IBM Watson. She is now executive vice president and global head of healthcare at EXL. She is also the executive sponsor of the Women at EXL Leadership Forum and the company's DEI Council. Please welcome Anita Mahon. Welcome. Thank you. All right, let's get this party started. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. 70 years ago, the computer scientist and pioneer Alan Turing said that it was going to be a threshold for humanity when a machine could imitate a human being's answer to questions in such a way that another human being wouldn't be able to tell the difference. The Turing test became known as the process of testing a machine's ability to think. So we are somewhere in the territory of that Turing described right now. So I'd like to start off with an existential question for all of you. Do you believe that this is a profound moment for humanity? Nuala, why don't you take that first?
Well, thank you so much, Missy. And yes, it's a profound moment for humanity, but not because of generative AI. It's because we are reimagining our relationship with power, with institutions, with each other. And technology can be a tool for good or for evil in that conversation. So just like a hammer can be used to hammer a nail or bop someone on the head, so can all of these tools be used for good, to bring us together, to help us understand one another better, or to continue to separate us into our silos of imagination and thought.
Keo, your thoughts?
I think I agree as well that this is a huge moment. It's a massive inflection point in technology. I think when we look back, we're going to see that this is a massive change similar to computers being introduced or the internet. It's going to get into every part of our lives, and there's going to be massive opportunities, also big risks. So is it profound? I guess it is, because this is a big test for us. This is a time where we need to be really thoughtful and responsible in order to do this well.
So, yes, 100%. This is a profound moment in time. And I think, Keo, I think the development of the internet and the way that it really transformed everything that we do, how we learn, how we educate, how we transact business, how we live our lives. So absolutely a profound change. But what I think is really different this time around is the speed. And the speed with which these changes happen is really, I believe, going to surprise many of us.
So let's move from the existential, right, to the practical in our daily lives. Our pulse question was about the impact of employment, right? So, Keo, I keep reading that lawyers are among those who may be replaced by generative AI. Do you think this is true, or does this mean a profound change in the way you work?
I read this too, and we get asked about this. Actually, clients ask me as well as we're talking. They ask, is my job going to be taken? I think this is a question that everybody has. For the legal world, I think no, it's not going to take our jobs, but it will change the way that we work, and maybe for the better. I think that lots of these sort of more routine and time-consuming data crunching type tasks are going to get taken. We can use AI tools to do those, and we can much better manage our time. So then the next question is, okay, so if we're much more efficient, does that mean we need fewer lawyers, or you get to work fewer hours? And I think the answer is probably no, because we will fill our time. We will find more things to do. Just because we're more efficient doesn't mean that we will be working less hard, or there will be any fewer of us, I think.
That's great. Nuala, you work for the largest employer in the world, Walmart. What impact do you think generative AI is going to have on jobs more broadly, and what kind of jobs do you think are the most at risk?
Well, I think the question really for all of us is whose jobs are not going to be impacted. Building on what Keo said, 100%. All of our jobs are going to change just like they changed when we got phones in our hands and computers at our desks. Does anyone here not have a phone? Does anyone here have a job where you never use a computer? There will be in the future no one answering that they do not use AI in some way to help them on their daily job. I'm a lawyer too, and I think that's all wishful thinking for all of you all who don't want too many lawyers in your midst, but all of our jobs are going to change. We're hoping at Walmart they change for the better, and we're already using AI in a thing called My Assistant, where our associates can ask their handheld device, hey, I need direction on how to do this particular job. The example I want to use you, and it's not a real one, but when I recently did a tour of Sam's Club, we have rules about how many flowers go on the birthday cake. And anyone who's ordered a child's birthday cake knows that it better be the pink flower or not the red flower or whatever it is. We will help our associates, instead of having to go to the back and look at the rule book about how many, how to design a particular cake, they'll be able to say, hey, assistant, or hey, I want to call them names. I'm big into anthropomorphization of the technology, so that's a very controversial thought, and we can have that conversation later. I'm all in for my children saying thank you and please to the digital assistants that we live with, even though they are not alive, because I think it breeds good manners, but that's a whole nother conversation. So I do think these assistants are going to help us make our jobs better, hopefully a little bit easier, a little less physically taxing in some cases. So I am ultimately optimistic, but we have to make good choices and have good governance, as the previous panel was pointing out as well.
So true. So Anita, what's your thoughts on the impact of this on jobs and whether women's jobs are more likely to take a hit?
Yeah, I mean, I think there have been a lot of schools of thought on this. I agree that when it comes to the creative professions, even though there is a lot of fear around what that might do, what we're going to find is that tailored generative AI solutions that fit right into the workflow of people like content marketers, software developers, lawyers. This is really going to enable these professionals to do a lot more and to have a greater impact on their customers. But I'm afraid that there are another perspective, which is that there's an estimate out there that 30% of the hours being worked in the US economy today will be automated away by 2030. And so these are in jobs like customer service, food preparation, office work. And then you think about that a minute and think the proportion of the women's work that is made up by those jobs more subject to automation is quite a bit higher than the proportion of work done by men today. There's also a prediction in there, and this comes from McKinsey, that women will be 50% more likely to have to completely change their occupation as this transformation goes on. So, I think it's really important that we encourage women to be more involved in the way that AI is changing work. We all as women know that when we take risks, the consequences we face may be different than what some of our male colleagues have faced. So despite that, we need to get over our, it's not to get over, let me not say it that way, but we have to recognize that this transformation is here, and we can't let AI be the new glass ceiling holding women back from progress.
Well said.
Yeah.
So continuing on that track, Anita, so EXL is a consulting firm that provides digital solutions and analytics. So one of its biggest focuses is the healthcare sector. How is EXL using generative AI right now, and what are the benefits for the people you serve?
So we have been speaking to all of our customers, looking for opportunities. We've talked to more than 300 customers in healthcare. And what we found, most are a bit hesitant to actually put AI directly in the hands of their patients right now. They'd rather keep a human in the loop. So one of the solutions we've got is not unlike the example from Walmart, where we have staff members who are supporting patients, maybe over the phone, and we are giving them real-time assistance to help assess the mood and the feel and the intent of the individual they're supporting, synthesize all the complex information they might have had to sift through themselves, and then give them guidance to really pinpoint what the next step they should take with that individual it is. So the benefits are really getting to the right answer faster, and then in the care management space, really amplifying the effects of the nurses that are supporting these patients. And I'm very well aware of the nursing shortage, I'm sure. So, this is more important than ever for the support of our patients. Another area that's a little bit different is, if you work in healthcare, you're probably aware that it is awash in complex documentation, policies, medical records that go on for 1,000 pages or more. So we're also putting in foundational tools that will get their information ready for more AI solutions in the future.
So let's just touch on that nursing shortage for a second. From what I read, it's estimated that an AI-powered robot can really only do about 10% of nursing functions. Yeah. But if we don't have enough people to do the nursing job, will we at some point have to resort to AI-powered robots to do nurses' jobs?
Yeah, I think some believe that you will see a proliferation of automated support at the bedside even. And robotics has, it's an incredible body of research all on its own that I'm not expert in, but I did just see robots being trained now by watching humans.
Whoa.
So if generative AI can advance the abilities of robots, I think that that's in the future.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, I just had a vision of my elderly life. So, Keo, okay, and sorry to give you another hard question, Keo, about lawyers, but there was recently a well-publicized case where lawyers presented an AI-generated legal brief that was full of mistakes, including citations from non-existent cases. To be clear, this was not your firm, okay? She had nothing to do with this. However, what protocols are in place at DLA Piper around the use of generative AI in legal work?
Yeah, that case or that news story did the rounds, as you can imagine, in the legal sector. And I think that was really based on a misunderstanding of the technology. I think basically what those lawyers had done was they used the publicly available ChatGPT to write their brief for them, and they didn't check it. Massive mistake. But I think even using the tool, it was probably the wrong tool as well, because that tool wasn't fine-tuned for legal writing. So at my firm, at DLA Piper, we are using generative AI. We started to roll that out. I think we might be one of the first big firms to do that. So we use a software called Counsel, which is not public, so all of the data stays within our firm, which is very important as well, because who knows what those guys were putting into a publicly available tool. Like, there's lots of confidentiality and IP issues in doing that, which we wouldn't have with this sort of a private tool. And it's been fine-tuned on legal precedents. So one, it should be more accurate, but also everybody's going to check it. None of our lawyers can use this tool until they've gone through some training. So they have to do 2 sets of training. The first training is a general training on ethics of generative AI to make sure that they understand the technology and how to responsibly use it. And then they get a second training on the actual tool itself to make sure they know how to use it properly. And this is all with a backdrop of, we've been working with the company for many years. We really understand the technology. We have a bunch of in-house data scientists, some of whom are also lawyers. So we really understand what's being put in. We've done a pilot as well. And these are all things we tell our clients to do when they're thinking about either developing or maybe procuring an AI tool. So it's nice that we're practicing what we preach. So we have had lots of thoughtful structure around this use, but we're really hopeful that it is going to give us a competitive edge in the marketplace.
That's great, because you're probably pretty sure that your competitors are probably doing the same thing, right?
I think everybody will need to, yes, at some point.
Right, wow. So Nuala, let's talk about generative AI at Walmart. As Chief Counsel for Digital Citizenship, maybe walk us through your responsibilities there.
So a few years ago, I'm really privileged to say my boss came up with the idea of knitting together all of the disciplines and governance structures around technology and data generally. You probably, those of you in companies know you have a privacy officer and a cybersecurity person and a this and a that, but really it's about digital risk and most importantly, when you're dealing with human beings information, my favorite phrase is digital dignity. Are we treating our customers, our associates, the human beings with which we engage, with dignity in the digital world, just as we want them treated with respect and dignity in the physical world when they walk into a Walmart store or a Sam's Club or one of our properties around the world? And so Rachel Brand, the Chief Legal Officer, came up with the idea of digital citizenship, that the company itself should be a responsible citizen in the digital world as we transform into a true omni-channel retailer, which is online and offline at the same time, and how we walk the classic Walmart values of respect for individual and excellence and service into this new world for us, at least, where our customers already are. And really working together across policy and law and compliance and governance and with our IT partners and with our data scientists to come up with governance structures. And so I frankly felt we were ready in a lot of ways for generative AI, since we already had an AI governance council. We already had bias structures to evaluate new tools, especially when they touch human beings. So I do think that's the watchword, is the answer to how we are using generative AI is very carefully.
Okay, so hashtag digital dignity, right? If any of you are putting photos or videos of this session on social media, let's give a hashtag digital dignity shout out.
Thank you so much. I've been trying to make that viral
I
for
love
years.
that. I love that. I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
So, Keo, you work for clients in the pharmaceutical and health device space. How is generative AI being used in those sectors, and what do you see as potential uses of that technology in the future?
So we're seeing lots and lots of use cases now across the whole life cycle. I think the one that's getting a lot of traction and that we're seeing with a lot of our clients and has having a big impact already is in the drug discovery context. So identifying new targets or new molecular structures. They're crunching, I mean, the software can crunch huge amounts of data and really compress the timeline. Previously, it's years in the making, and it's lots of intense scientists working. And we're really seeing that whole process getting crunched down so we can bring newer drugs to the market much quicker. So I think there's a lot of investment. We're seeing lots of companies springing up in that area. The big issue is, can we get enough data? Can we get enough good data? which is the whole, I mean, AI is basically data. But we're seeing it across the whole cycle. So we're seeing generative AI being used in marketing in the drug space, which there's some tensions there about, well, do you think you should be seeing a real patient versus is this something that's been augmented by generative photos? It's not a real person anymore, which has lots of interest in you think you're seeing something real and you're not, and should that be disclosed? But we're seeing that. That's absolutely being used. We see it in the sort of safety side of things as well, and on the regulatory side, we're seeing the generative AI being used to generate first drafts of documents that might end up going into regulators like FDA, or to design clinical trials, or to summarize complaints and things that come in from customers. And everything, all of this is driving everything to be faster, and the idea would be then therefore safer, because we can respond to safety signals, or we can get these drugs to market earlier. So we're seeing it. I don't think, honestly, that there's an aspect of the sort of life sciences life cycle that couldn't have some sort of generative AI application used and improved. But I'm an optimist and very much an AI supporter.
Okay, that's great. Awesome. And so, Nuala, you are a privacy expert, and I know there's limitations around what you can tell us, but maybe explore at Walmart, how do you decide what data you're going to use or not use?
Well, I think the first watchword is the internal kind of tools, that the data we're using in our own tools is not going outside to the public. And that's a good rule of thumb, and a thing to think about for all of you as you go ahead and explore these tools is what you put in, you don't know where it's going to come out and for who else. So we gave guidance very, very early before we turned on any of these tools inside the company. You know, no confidential information, no sensitive information, no proprietary information, no PII, no personal information about human beings. These are tools, and I think some of the comments already pointed to, they have good use. They're idea generators. They're ways to spark imagination. I was stuck on something I was writing, and my 15-year-old daughter said to me, "Mom, why don't you put that question into ChatGPT and see what happens?" It actually gave a really pretty good answer. But the question is, what did I do with it next? First of all, I told the person, as you did at the beginning, I disclosed, hey, I got to show you this email. I didn't write a word of it. Isn't that hilarious? But number two, I also fact-checked, right? I checked everything I did, and I said, this is what has been done, and this is what's accurate, and this is what I'm going to take from it. But it was not legal counsel. It was just, ideation. I would encourage you all to use these tools to look at your itinerary for your next vacation. It's a hoot. I've done it 2 or 3 times. It's been remarkably accurate, but don't show up at some tourist attraction reliant on the information in the tool. Make sure it's open, or the hours are what they say, whatever. So you could find yourself in a real pickle. So yes, the tools are still in infancy. They are going to get better. And I think the other watchword for companies is disclose, be transparent, be accountable. I think one of the worst things we could do is be using technology where we do not inform, hopefully educate, and maybe even entertain our customers, our clients, our partners, because people feel duped. It's the uncanny valley, right, where you think it's real, you're not sure it's real, is it a computer? And it does not generate what is really the key word for my team, which is trust. We want people to trust the environment, the company, and their experience with us.
Okay, well, that brings up a really great question. We'll turn this one to you, Anita. So you guys deal with highly confidential data at EXL. How do you protect it?
It is just the #1 priority every day when we get in and start our work. So we've been working in data and analytics for quite some time, more than almost 20 years now at EXL. And in addition to healthcare, we work with banking clients, insurance clients, and all of these are highly regulated industries. So it starts with compliance to all of the applicable regulations. HIPAA and high trust in healthcare are key, and using all of the modern, data for your data center, for your cloud, using all the security and privacy tools that you've got. But when you're developing AI solutions, it goes even beyond that. You know, we try to set up isolated environments. For example, if we're doing analysis on medical records, we'll put that in a separate walled-off space in our infrastructure. And as we, continue to develop in this space, you're going to see, I think, even more of a focus on using tools around data governance so you can track the lineage of the data. Totally agree with your comments, Nuala, about being able to be transparent, be upfront when something, an outcome or an application you're providing is based on AI or based on a model. But then also to show the data provenance, show the lineage, show where the data came from.
Awesome. So, okay, Keo, another tough legal question. Europe has already implemented data privacy laws and is developing AI legislation. The US Congress is also considering legislation to regulate AI. What kind of regulation do you think is needed to ensure that this technology is deployed in the safest possible way? And should this regulation be global in nature?
So that is a big question. And it is interesting to look at the parallel with what's going on in Europe. So if we think about, you mentioned the privacy legislation first. We haven't got that yet here in the US. It looked last year like we might get some sort of federal privacy law, but it has really stalled, and we are not there. So it is very interesting now that there's all of this consideration and time and meetings. There were lots of Senate meetings earlier this month around AI. They still haven't sorted out the privacy issue yet, which would read onto a lot of AI issues. We'll see whether we can get something together. Can we reach agreement on AI? I think, though, that there probably is a need for something. And while we don't have any laws specific to AI right now, we do have a lot of existing laws that read on to artificial intelligence. So you still just can't do anything you want with AI. So on the medical side of things, the FDA has already cleared over 500 AI ML-enabled medical devices, so they are regulated. They are covered by existing laws. The Federal Trade Commission has come out with explicit statements about AI. You cannot claim that you're using AI if you are not. You cannot make claims about how good or accurate your AI is if it actually is not. There's over 100 legal cases pending. Also, we're seeing lots of litigation all around AI, and so they're all pulling in those existing laws. Now, when it comes to something specific, which I think there probably we will get there at some point, and Europe is the furthest down the line at regulating, although they're still not there yet. They still have problems with their definition of AI, which does seem very foundational at this point. The closest thing, I suppose, that we have right now, I always come back to the NIST framework for AI. So that's the National Institute for Standards and Technology. Earlier this year, they came out with a risk management framework, which puts a lot of the principles that we've been talking about, transparency and fairness. It outlines a lot of that, and it also talks about the fact that there are these overlaps with existing laws, but then specifically comes out and says there are unique risks with AI, and I think that's where this new sort of specific regulation might come in. And we'll see what form that takes. We've heard in the recent meetings on the Hill that maybe it's going to be something akin to a licensing. If you're in one of these, if you've got a high-risk AI model, that maybe you're going to have to get a license and so prove that it has been developed in a certain way, that it's been tested for fairness, for bias, and that it's auditable and will be checked for drift and things like that. So maybe we'll get there. Maybe it will be a register, maybe some sort of certification. I don't think it should be self-certification because that never works very well. But I think we're a little ways off. It's all kind of up in the air right now.
Okay, so for the members of our audience who are corporate board members, in the absence of regulation, where it is absent, what steps should corporate boards take regarding the use of generative artificial intelligence?
So I think I'm going to go back to NIST again, because in that framework, in the AI framework, they specifically called out boards of directors and said that AI governance and the risks around that are a board-level issue, and that we really need top-down leadership in order to make sure that the governance is sustainable. So we always make sure when we go and talk to clients and when we are helping them to stand up their AI governance frameworks, that there really is board-level buy-in, that we often go in and sort of educate. We do trainings around it at that high level. And if you're in the room and you're a C-suite executive and you think, oh, we haven't done any of this, I think you're in quite good company. This is something that's just starting to happen in a lot of companies. It's amazing the number of people that we talk to who will frankly tell us, we don't even know where we're using AI in our company right now. We have no inventory. But I think that the responsible thing to do is to start getting ahead of it. It takes time to put in these kinds of big governance structures. And the NIST framework has stated that it does seem like it requires its own thing. So if you remember having to stand something up for privacy or cybersecurity, this is a whole nother program that needs to go in and slot in with all those existing ones. So I think it is definitely something for boards of directors to be thinking about, to be aware of, and then to make sure that they delegate down through their management system.
Okay, so we're going to move into some questions from the audience. The first one we have is from Joanna in New Mexico. It's, how does AI impact individuals' privacy concerns? Who would like to jump in and take that one?
Well, I'll give a quick start, which is it definitely does in that there is the data that is put in, and the tool is only as good as the data that's put in. So if it's wrong about you, if someone has put in incorrect data, and then an opaque decision has been made about you, it's very hard to undo. So you do want to jealously guard your data and your information about where you put it in and let it out there on the internet. As I always teach my children, I was an early adopter and allowing them to get on the internet, but I would stand over them to the point that they now can recite no names, no IDs, no addresses, no phone numbers. Like, it is better to have your kids engaged, but with thought and care, and to be really, really careful. Like, even when Bed Bath & Beyond used to ask me for my phone number at the checkout, I'm like, why do you need my phone number? Here's my credit card, or here's my dollar bill, right? So be a little cautious about the data you let trail you around the internet. Mm-hmm. Other thoughts?
I'll add to that. If y'all are on Facebook and you see those quizzes to find out what type of celebrity you're going to be in your next life or whatever it is, please don't do that. They are collecting personal information about you when you take those quizzes.
Correct.
They are not necessarily from honest actors. So no more Facebook quizzes,
yes.
okay? If you want to protect your own personal data.
You're right.
So one more question. Catherine from Pittsburgh says, what types of learning or critical thinking skills will be needed to upskill the future labor force to work with AI?
Great question. Somebody else want to start?
Yeah, so I think this is a concern for businesses everywhere right now. And in addition to working with educational institutions, most are creating, broad capability development programs so that our existing employees can get more exposure to, it's really broadly to technology, to digital capability, to how data is used, to trying to get an understanding of what are the models behind the tools that you're using. And I think, in the space of education itself, AI is going to be more and more significant. I know we've all heard about the plagiarism epidemic in education, but I think that AI is going to help make education even more personalized, help guide students along whatever their journey needs to be, whatever gaps they need to fill, and then ultimately make education more rewarding for the students. But it's an important shift in how we're developing the leaders of the future.
Yeah, I think I see this from two angles. One is that I think this is a big time for growth in data scientists and folks studying robotics and AI engineers. And we should be promoting that amongst women, because that is not traditionally maybe some of these IT areas that we see a lot of women, but that's absolutely something that we should be promoting. And then on the other side, the actual use, the day-to-day use, you see things about prompt engineers. These are prompt wizards who have found the you type in the right text to get the best answer out so that you're utilizing these tools in the best way. And that is going to be something that we can all learn. And maybe that is something that starts to come into education, settings. And I think from my perspective, I always come back to the healthcare bent. Doctors are going to need to be educated on how to use and understand and interpret these tools. So I think that needs to be something that gets pulled into medical degrees.
Awesome. I would love to add that let's also build up those trade schools, right? Trade schools are a great alternative to a four-year college to get into technology, to learn computer programming and engineering, mechanical engineering, data science, things like that. There's wonderful certification programs out there. A four-year degree is not necessarily always the correct way to go if you're going into tech. And I don't have a degree. I started with certifications. And so far, it's working out pretty good. So I'd like to ask one final question. What do you think will be the most dramatic societal transformation resulting from generative AI? Nuala?
Well, I think the last question from the audience pointed to the idea of critical thinking skills. My biggest concern, I think both the promise and the peril of so many of our technology tools is reshaping our relationship with information and, frankly, the truth. So the challenge I have with what comes out of generative AI tools is it sounds so good, right? It sounds so authoritative, and it gives you an answer. Unfortunately, what we've seen is that hallucinations, as they're called, which I'd like to remind our people are just lies, right? They're just not true, can really feel very authoritative and correct. So my hope for our country, for many parts of the world, is the critical thinking skills at all levels of education. And I agree with you, all levels of education. There are many paths to a successful career. And we at Walmart have just actually done away with college degrees as a requirement for a number of our jobs. And I'm so pleased with that.
Awesome.
Yes, really proud of us.
That's great.
Lots of paths forward to have a successful life, I hope, in this country. But having a critical eye to the information that these tools are putting out is going to be a key skill for all of us.
Wonderful. Anita?
So I think of this optimistically. I think that we will actually, every one of us, have a very high-functioning AI assistant in the not-so-distant future. And if you think about a lot of the things that take up your time in work, in your personal life, I think there'll be an AI assistant that will know you, know what you have to do, and get a lot of things done for you. And I think that can be, it can be something we can imagine going through all levels of society and potentially be more of an equalizer than creating more divides. And I also, when I think about, well, what will that really be like in the future? Will I really be working less? And I actually think it's possible. I think we might all be working less. And then what will we do with it? That's a good thing. That's a good thing. And then I wonder, is this going to open up a lot more creative expression and personal expression? And it got me thinking about like the new Renaissance, where people will have more time to get involved in art and music and personal relationships. And maybe it's really going to let us live more enriching lives over the long term.
Love that. Awesome. Love that. That's really good.
Thank you.
Yep, that's great.
So Keo, you get the last word on this.
Wow.
Take it home. Land the plane.
So I think, it's going to have a massive effect on everything, our work, the way we entertain ourselves, the way we communicate with each other. But like I said earlier, I always bring this back to healthcare. And so I think my vision for a really great impact that we could have is helping some of the crumbling or maybe in crisis healthcare that we have in various countries around the globe. I'm very hopeful that we increase efficiencies and we decrease wait times and we join up all of our data and we really move to a place where we aren't in that crisis mode where we're just battling the latest disease, issue, condition. We are working in a preventative and personalized way that I think would just be revolutionary if nobody really has to worry about their health care anymore.
Boy, wouldn't that be something?
Totally agree.
Right? So thank you, Anita, Keo, and Nuala, so much for joining us today on this session. And I hope you will all join me tomorrow when I deliver my breakout session that takes a deeper dive into all the energy and infrastructure that AI is going to be consuming very shortly to support the tremendous use of AI by all of your companies. Now, please welcome back to the stage Mary Kramer. Thank you.